In this session, we're going to look at writing information to text files. So we know we're going to be working with an ASCII file or a text file that only contains printable characters. This time, instead of reading, we're going to learn how to write that information to the file. So to write, we're going to follow exactly the same process. We're going to declare the pointer, open the file, verify successful open, do our writing, and then close the file. It's critical when we're writing a file that we close it. Occasionally, if you forget to close it and you've been reading the file, that's okay. But if you don't close a file after writing information to it, you're going to lose all the information you just wrote. So here, we set up our file pointer. We open our file. This time, our mode is to write. We make sure that the file pointer didn't come back as null, which means we had an error. We're going to write our data and then close. So just like when we were reading from ASCII files, writing to ASCII files, we have three functions, and they pretty much mirror the ones we use to read. So instead of having an fscanf to read, we have an fprintf, and this allows us to print formatted data. So we can print integers, floats, anything like that to a file. The format's pretty much the same. Our fprintf, we need the file pointer, we need a format specifier which identifies what information we're writing, and then we have to specify the parameter or parameters. It's going to return how many values it has successfully written. So here we have our fprintf, our link to our file. We're going to write line is, and we're going to actually write that text plus the line itself right into the file. So let's take a look at an actual file here. We see our declaration of our file pointer, our file name. It's a simple text file here. A string that we're going to write to the file. We open the file in write mode. Gives us back our file pointer. We check the file pointer to make sure the open was successful. We write our file to the file that we're linked to. We're going to write line is :space followed by what's in line. We close the file, and then we're going to print that we wrote n characters, and it's going to be kind of hard to do because I didn't ever assign n. So where would n come from? Right here. So we would say n equals the result of fprintf, and assuming we had an integer up here for n, we could then print the number of characters written is, in this case, it would be 38. And here's what, if we open the text file using, I use TextPad here, we can see the line is, this is the text for the file. Now just like we had an fget string, we have an fput string. We pass in a string and the link to our file, and it's going to return a non-negative value or end of file. So if it returns an integer 2, that means that it was successful. If it returns end of file, it means we had an error. So we have a number or end of file. End of file is my error, and a number, and a positive number, means it was successful. We also have fputc. So we had fgetc to read, now we have fputc. We need to specify the character we want written and the link to our file, which is our file pointer. What it's going to do is it's either going to return the character that it wrote, or it's going to return end of file. So here we're going to get end of file on an error, or we're going to get the character itself if it was successful. So to recap, we have three functions we can use to write to a file. We can use fprintf, just like printf, except now we're going to write to a file. Whatever we specify in here, could be strings, characters, integers, floating point numbers, structures, whatever we want, and the variables that match this specifier. It's going to return the number of things that it actually wrote to the file. If it returns a 0, it means it hasn't written anything and there was a problem. Then we have fputs, that we can write a string. So we're going to write this string to this file. It's either going to return a positive number indicating success, or it's going to return EOF, end of file, indicating there was an error. And F_C allows us to write one character at a time, so we're going to write this character to this file. It's going to return the character itself, or EOF if there was an error.